Most players don't like it when one player races to get an infinite combo and then just beats everybody else.
Distraction makers.
We on this channel have been critical of Commander Magic. But today, things change. Today, we will be more critical of Commander Magic than we've ever been.
You know, we recently posted on Reddit.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And we had a very nice comment from someone that said that they appreciated our comments on Commander and how it wasn't just us hating on the format.
Oh, I think they misinterpreted what we're saying.
No. I was very happy to read that because I was like, thank you. Because I don't feel like we are hating on Commander for hating's sake or anything.
No.
We have legitimate criticisms, but we still play it.
This video is going to be about how Commander changes the strategy of Magic. And because of the way that it changes it, it sort of subverts some of the way that the game has been made since the beginning.
This is somewhat related to, I don't know if it'll be out by the time this video comes out, but we'll have a video about the strategy circle, as we've referred to it. Talking about main archetypes of strategy being economy, rush, and defense.
Right. Briefly, it just means that rush is trying to win the game now, economy is trying to invest to win the game later, and defense is trying to stop your opponent from winning the game.
Right. The traditional standard Magic aggro, for instance, or rush, is mono red aggro is like great example, but you get creatures out as fast as possible, swing them at your opponent, throw some lightning bolts, kill them as soon as you possibly can.
The baseline level strategy of it is that each card you have should be roughly the equivalent of 3 damage so that you can have your opening hand of cards and draw a couple more throughout the game as you're playing it. And then you have, just enough lands, just enough 3 damage spells or creatures or whatever to win the game by turn 3 or 4.
Right. But let's open up a hypothetical situation here. Right. All right. So, game of Commander. Okay. I bring my best aggro mono red deck. Okay. Yep. I don't know what the commander would be. Some name of
Slicer.
Different one. That's a different strategy.
I
don't know.
Krinko. Muxus. These are goblins. Perforos.
What the f*** is Perforos?
That's the god from Theros.
What's he do?
He does some cool stuff. I don't remember.
All right, sure, Perforos.
All right. Is that his name?
And my opening hand. Oh, it's perfect. I got 2 red. I don't run a lot of high mana stuff, so I'm good with 2 red mana, sure. And I got a bunch of low cost spells.
Everything else does 3 damage.
Everything else does 3 damage. Yep. Let's even say these are made up lightning bolts. All right, sure. They deal 3 damage to all players. All right, for 1 red mana.
Oh.
Turn 1, play a red. Lightning bolt, 3 damage to everyone.
Yep.
Everyone goes, who the f*** do you think you are?
Right.
And they beat the shit out of you.
Well, right. But also, you've done the equivalent of 1.5 damage to each of those players because they have 40 life.
Right. So there's 2 problems here, right? So Magic is based off of 20 life as opposed to 40 life like Commander has.
Yeah.
So a lot of those damage numbers are built around the 20 life total system because that's the primary way that you would normally play Magic in the past. On top of that, a lot of things are single target. So now you have to deal twice as much damage, and you have to deal it to 3 other people. So that already means that strategy, that entire archetype, the way it is it's not that it doesn't exist, but it is not anywhere close to the way that it is structured in traditional Magic.
Right. Yeah. So when we are talking about the strategy circle, each it's sort of a rock paper scissors, right? In that when you have a rush strategy, it is weak to a defense strategy, and when you have an economy strategy, it's weak to a rush strategy. But when you look at the structures of Commander, a traditional rush strategy doesn't work like what we're talking about because life totals are so high. So you have to then lean on rush strategy exists. They exist in the format, but they basically have to be a means to beat all of your opponents at once. You're not really going to be able to focus down one opponent at a time because the other opponents are going to realize what you're doing. You'll become arch enemy. They'll gang up and they'll beat you.
Right. It's not so much a rush as you start throwing spells right away, trying to get everyone down as fast as possible, as much as it is a rush to get your 2-card combo piece to infinite and win the game before they can stop you.
Right. Or in Godo's case, your 1-card combo piece.
You'd need Helm of the Host.
He finds it. He tutors it up.
Yeah, actually, before we started recording, Gavin showed me this Godo deck with Helm of the Host. If you're not familiar with it, just look up Godo CEDH deck. It's really fucking stupid.
It is the quintessential rush deck of the format. Yeah. Okay, so the other problem here, and this is going to creep a little bit into player psychology of Commander territory, in that the rush strategy of Commander is one that is not... most players don't like it. Most players don't like it when one player races to get an infinite combo and then just beats everybody else. So what ends up happening is through the sort of social dynamics of play, these types of strategies get sort of removed from the format, which means that economy strategies end up taking over in terms of power level. Because if you're looking to, okay, well, if rush isn't even a possibility, then we move to what is weak to rush, because that will beat a defensive strategy, right? So economy becomes the default because it beats defense, and nobody's playing rush. So everything ends up looking like a deck that draws a lot of cards and plays a bunch of land. And this is why everybody sort of complains that Simic is just the baseline Commander deck. Draw cards, get mana. Win game.
Man.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I like to hear.
Okay, so let's move into how the strategy of Commander actually changes and reestablishes this strategy circle. And it doesn't really happen until you get to higher levels of the format. We're talking CEDH territory.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think some people might get upset when we start negatively talking about Commanders. A lot of the times we're not talking about it from a casual standpoint. We're talking about it as if you were to take the format very seriously and take it into a competitive way, this is where it goes. The problem is that if you're in a pod, right, your local Commander group that you get together with, everyone has their own idea of what is casual or competitive.
Right.
If everyone at the table is decidedly, absolutely competitive, there's usually almost no problems.
Right.
Yeah. But if you're casual, and other people are casual, and then one other person is casual,
right. Yeah. Then we got problems.
There's a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So in the highest levels of the format, what ends up happening is that your deck has room. And also these cards exist within the format to allow you to move between these types of strategies during gameplay, which is wholly unique to the way that you would normally play Magic. Normally, you would show up to a tournament with a deck that leans in one of these directions already. Where when you come to a table of CEDH, you don't necessarily have... You can lean in one direction or another, but your deck within your 99 cards, you have the means to shift between these types of strategies.
I think it being a singleton format of you only having one copy of one card per deck, even if there are cards that do similar things, and the adaptability because of the scale of the deck and the scale of single cards allows a deck to essentially serve any one function it might need at any one time. So it can have interaction when it needs, it can rush when it needs, or it can go economy when it needs to.
Right. And this is sort of where we see the interesting parts of the format play out. Where if you're in another format and you have a deck that can do all three of these things, you got stuff that's going to get banned because it's subverting the way that the established sort of meta strategy of the game works. But here in CEDH, This is also, so a lot of people are talking about whether or not they should ban the card Thassa's Oracle.
It's been talked about enough.
It's been talked about a lot. So Thassa's Oracle, in combination with Demonic Consultation or Demonic Pact, is the main way that that decks win the game.
What's Demonic Consultation do?
Did I say Demonic Pact?
You said Demonic Consultation, then said Demonic Pact.
Demonic Pact's not what it's called. Pact, something Pact.
You're talking about
Demonic Consultation.
You're talking about the card draws off the top and you pay life to draw it?
No, that's ad nauseum. Okay.
That's not what I'm thinking of.
So the way that the Thassa's Oracle combo works, it's 2-card combo. You get Thassa's Oracle, and then you have the card Demonic Consultation, which basically says name a card. You reveal cards from your deck until you reveal the named card, and then you get rid of the rest of your deck. So you're essentially exiling your entire deck with Thassa's Oracle's trigger on the stack, which is you play Thassa's Oracle, triggers, you Demonic Consultation in response, and you exile your whole deck. Thassa's Oracle sees that you don't have any cards in your library, and you win the game. Because that rush strategy is so compact, right? You can slot it into your deck without having to devote a whole lot of space and pull pieces of the rest of these types, the sort of macro archetypes out of your deck. Where normally in Magic, if you wanted to lean into a rush strategy, you're going to have to do it at the expense of an economy strategy or a defense strategy, right? Something has to give somewhere.
Yeah.
But because the packages that end up going in these CEDH decks are so small and tight, you can end up playing a bunch of economy stuff, a bunch of defense stuff, and then just enough rush. And it's usually just the 2-card combo.
It's also because of it being a 4-player game, there's many times that you just won't be the target. This is probably more leaning a little bit more into the casual space, whereas I don't know if this is cared about as much in a competitive space. I don't follow it as much. But I know, at least in the casual space, like there's many times that like if you are, the small person, like don't hurt me, I'm just baby, here playing commander, people probably won't hurt you, right? Or once someone becomes the threat, they're the target, and that gives you the opportunity to start building up advantage, and then you can play your thing. Whereas in a 1v1 game, you have no time to recover for that.
Yeah, and so what we end up seeing sort of in a normal CEDH game is this sort of tension between who is in what mode, or who's in a rush. Rush is usually the last one that ends up happening, which is just trying to win the game. But basically, who is anybody trying to win the game now? Is anybody am I keeping up in investment to win the game later? And am I using my interaction when I need to use it? And so if we're moving between these types of strategy, it actually starts to look a bit more like playing something like StarCraft 2, where while you're playing the game at a tactics level, you're able to move between these all 3 parts of this strategy circle. So what I think then becomes the most interesting is that players, I think, that understand this and are good at interpreting what stage of this their opponents are in can respond accordingly. Where if you have someone who has maybe overinvested in economy or has economy only their economy cards in their hand, you're going to be able to, and you have your Thassa's Oracle win condition, you're able to say, okay, well, I sense in the table there's much less interaction, so I'm going to go ahead and I can win the game now. This is also why, in the externalities video, we talk about how you shouldn't really be playing a lot of removal. You should be playing counterspells.
Right.
And that counterspells do double duty. They can stop someone from winning the game, and they can also help you in the game.
Yeah.
Where if you're playing just removal spells, it's just I'm stopping someone else from winning the game.
Right.
They don't have the same modularity.
You don't ever need to board wipe if nothing that your opponent actually needs made it to the field. But the problem is you need to be a good enough player to understand what they really need to play it to the field.
Right. How does this apply to a casual level EDH game?
I think I don't think it's going to affect casual pods quite as much. I think what it is, though, this is kind of what ends up happening, I think, is that anytime you have someone that's playing Commander, that brings their Commander deck, and that understands these aspects of Commander, someone else that is trying to just play multiplayer Magic the Gathering, I don't think is going to completely make that connection, because it's not intuitive to assume that the things that would work in a 1v1 Magic game will not work in a Commander game, or they will work. Sorry, technically your deck will work if you just want to shove a bunch of lightning bolts in there and play mono red aggro the way you would in Standard. Technically it works, but it's not efficient. And it's not nearly as efficient as many of these other types of decks that you could do that would win the game much, much faster.
You're going to have to draw a million cards.
You're going to have to draw a million cards. And this is actually something that I'm starting to recognize, because I consider myself not necessarily casual, but I don't really care about being competitive by any means. But I do, most of the time, if I'm making a deck, like most people, I want my deck to do a particular thing. So in order to have my deck do that particular thing, I have to either have enough cards that do the same type of thing multiple times so that I can increase my chances of running into that. So that would be maybe having a tutor that basically acts as a second version of that card. Or I just have some sort of a way of gaining card advantage at a rate that will increase my chances of running into the things that I want to see. So that would be just a lot of card draw, or mill with some possibility of being able to get cards back out. And so what ends up happening is right now I'm working on making a vanilla creatures deck in honor of Isamaru. Is it Isamaru?
It's Isamaru. Yep, dude, we got so much for that.
So in honor of Isamaru,
right? Yeah.
I'm working on a vanilla creatures deck, and it turns out not a lot of does anything with vanilla creatures. There's like 3 cards,
right?
So I still want to make sure I have enough vanilla creatures, but in order to run into those things, I need a lot of card draw. So I put in a ton of card draw in order to get those things, which is like cards that aren't necessarily moving me directly towards my goal. That's an economy type of a strategy, but that's what we're talking about, right? Is that if I invest enough in economy, assuming that someone else that I'm playing with isn't playing some CEDH level hyper competitive deck that's able to just bring things out of the board at a really fast pace, or just, infinite combo right away, then I'm probably going to be able to get the cards that I want to get to start playing and see my deck function the way that it wants. But it's an asymmetry, I think, of tactics. If someone else understands this and they construct their deck with these type of things in mind, I've already noticed that when we've played some of our games, is that we have a lot of people that we play with, and they play at varying degrees of like what they care about with their deck. I have a friend that I hope he sees this that puts 30 lands in his commander decks, and he's insane.
That's how many you're supposed to play.
30?
If you're playing Mana Crypt,
no,
Lotus Petal,
I'm talking basic
Mox Opal,
lands,
Mox Diamond,
talking 28 to 30 basic lands,
yeah, that's not,
and like 3 mana rock. Come on,
it's not gonna work.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, you don't have to keep that in.
Yeah.
But we play with a lot of different people that have a variety of decks and a variety of their level of understanding of tactics when it comes to commander games. And a lot of them don't play cards that allow them to build that engine to get to the thing that they want to do to win the game.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's like, yeah, at a certain point, you reach a certain level of understanding where I'm starting to realize like, oh, well, I'm not going to lose this game right away. So I'm going to spend the first few turns just drawing a bunch of cards, building up my economy, gaining defenses.
There's basically like there's no downside to investing in economy from turn 1. Yeah. In baseline, casual commander, what I will say is if you're a player who is running into the same kind of strategy over and over again in your pool of commander players, meaning like people that just invest in economy and that's all they're doing, you might want to think about bringing in some kind of a rush strategy into that environment to shake up the metagame, because otherwise this is just what will end up happening.
And I think that this is actually interesting.
Play Godo.
Right, play Godo. I think that it's funny. Don't play Godo. But I think it's funny because this is where I think having different decks that serve different functions is going to just be how you decide to play your games, right? it's not necessarily playing some sort of a spite deck, but if, a bunch of people are playing economy, then you want to have something a little different, or else you're all just going to kind of be playing, your own little game of solitaire until people start popping off and playing their big creatures or whatever.
The biggest issue is that if you're all playing economy, then the person who has the most inevitable win condition is just going to be the person that wins most of the time. And maybe your group's okay with that, and that's fine. Hopefully you enjoyed that talk about how Commander changes the strategy of Magic the Gathering. If you did, give us a like and subscribe, or tell us in the comments what you thought we missed.
I'm sure you will.
That's what normally happens.
Yep.